Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to day three. Welcome to day three of efficiently managing eligibility, need, and family enrollment. I'm just going to give it one beat here so that everyone can go ahead and come in from the waiting room. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I'm so glad you're sticking with us. It looks like mostly everyone. That is really good. That means we're doing something okay. So that makes me happy. Today we are starting with, now we're not starting with need. We're finishing. Are we starting with need? Finishing need, and then not to say we're starting with family fees. That is not true. We're starting with the end of need, going into family fees. So just in case maybe you exited a little early yesterday and you're a part day CSPP program, this isn't going to apply to you. You're welcome to hang with us. We're going to invite those individuals back around 9:30, 9:40-ish, and then we'll be right where they want to jump back in. But again, if you're here, you're welcome to hang out. With that, I don't have any other particular announcement. The Q&A was awesome yesterday, really great engagement. Your questions really help us know like where we're at, if we're getting information across correctly. So keep the Q&A coming. And again, thank you so much for you sharing your time with us this morning. So let's go ahead and jump right in.
Yeah, let's go for it. Thank you so much, Adam. And then again, today I'm going to be presenting the first part, and then Janie will be presenting after break. So again, as Adam shared, welcome back to day three. What a great way to training on a Friday right before the weekend. And today, as Adam shared, we're going to be covering the part of need for services, family fee, by completing the application for services and our notice of actions due process. We will conclude with bringing everything we learned together by organizing the family data file. Before we jump into determining a child care schedule, let's review what to do if a 3 or 4-year-old child is enrolled in a full day preschool program and a parent has no established need for services. The certified schedule for families with no established need who are enrolled in a state preschool program must be based upon the past and is limited to no more than a day and no more than 5 per week. Families that request service hours per day must provide documentation to support the established need for additional services. Okay, and so here on the screen, we just have a sample form of what that might look like in a parent request. Once a family establishes eligibility and need, again, they will remain eligible and receive services until it's time to recertify. With that said, it's very, very important to ensure we get it right from the get-go when it comes to determining a child certified schedule, or you could find yourself living with a file error for a full 12 to 24 months. Let's look at enrollment specialist Retta's process. Okay, now we're going into determining a child's schedule. Step 1, verify. Did each adult counted in the family size submit documentation of need? Are need forms entirely completed? Is further verification needed? If applicable, is additional support documentation present? Step 2, consider. Consider if the parent's need precludes the provision of the care and supervision of their child for part of the day. Consider, is no parent in the family available or capable of providing care during time care is requested? If a 2-parent family, consider where their need overlaps, as care can only be approved when neither parent is available to care for the child. And finally, consider if supervision of the child is not otherwise being provided during scheduled time by a school-age public educational program, private school, or early learning and care services. This leads us to step 3, determine schedule. Based on need documentation, determine if the parent has a consistent or variable schedule. According to the regulations, if the basis of need, as stated on the application for services, is employment of the parent, the documentation of the parent's employment shall include the days and hours of employment. If the total number of hours worked each week is consistent, but the days and hours of employment vary, the documentation shall support the total number of hours worked each week. So what might documenting and determining a consistent schedule look like in practice? Stanley completes the authorization to release employment information and submits it to RETA, along with his wage stubs. Enrollment specialist RETA works with the employer to complete the employment verification form, including verifying Stanley's work schedule, which indicates that Stanley works consistent set days and hours each week, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Based on the verified consistent work schedule plus travel time, RETA certifies care Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. In the event that the total number of hours worked each week is consistent, but the days and hours of employment vary, documentation must support the total hours worked each week. So in this example here, the parent works 40 hours per week within 4 days per week on any given day of the week. Basically, this parent works 4 10-hour shifts. This is a consistent schedule or a schedule with. If the parent's employment is a variable schedule and precludes the contractor from verifying a specific number of hours per week, the contractor shall use the provided documentation from either month of the 2-month window immediately preceding the initial certification or recertification, and identify this number of actual hours worked within any given week, and use that as the basis for approving the certified schedule on the application for services. Okay, so here's the reg. Let's see what this looks like in practice. Stanley is in your office for recertification on November 12th. He has been working for a temp agency these past few months. In this scenario, the contractor reviewed the provided documentation from either month window immediately preceding the initial certification and identified the highest number of actual hours worked within any given week. If at the time of initial certification or recertification, parent does not have a work history, shall establish the certified schedule based on the various and hours, or if a variable highest total hours per week, the employer to work. So let's look at what this might look like in practice as verified by the employer. The maximum of days this parent works in a week is 4 days, and the maximum number of hours worked worked is 35 hours per week. You would certify care for the maximum hours plus travel time. Next, if the parent is in school or employed, add travel time. Based on need type, such as seeking employment, seeking housing, or incapacity, there are also other maximum days or hours that we need to take into consideration when determining the schedule. And if a two-parent family, care is approved again when neither parent is available to care for the child. So we call this overlapping need time. And in the final step 4, it's time to certify the schedule. RETA does this by inputting the certified schedule on both the application for services and notice of action. The school S line indicates the amount of care needed on school days, and the vacation V line indicates the amount of time needed during vacations in non-school days. And we have a few examples here on the screen. Those are available in your PDF presentation. Okay, this I believe should be a polling slide here. So we're gonna go into our poll room and check for questions after that regarding need for services. Hey, I just launched our final need poll. This one only has 4 questions, so we'll give folks a few minutes to go through these 4 questions. Okay, I'm going to end this poll in just about 15 seconds. Lots of great participation. All righty, let's go ahead and end the poll. And I'm going to share the results with you now, and we will talk through each of these. Okay. So number 1, Donna works at Target Wednesday through Sunday for no more than 4 days and 40 hours per week. Her schedule would be considered consistent in this situation. It's okay if it falls on 4 different days per week. She just has that total schedule of 40 hours per week. Number 2, Ben works for Instacart and is available to pick up orders Monday through Sunday. Some days he works 3 hours a day, and others he's making deliveries for 8 hours a day. his schedule would definitely be considered variable because he hasn't like made a set schedule for himself. It's kind of all over the place, right? And so in that situation, you're going to look at those 4 weeks and see what hours in 1 week did, what were the highest number of hours he worked in one of those weeks. And that would, that is how you would determine his schedule. And number 3, Kelly's employment verification and wage stubs state that she works a maximum of 35 hours per week, Monday through Friday. How many hours of services do you approve? Since she's working, so working and going to school, you can allow travel time. So the correct answer is 35 hours per week plus travel time. And Dwight just landed a new job. His employment verification states he can work a maximum of 50 hours per week, Sunday through Saturday. How many hours of services do you approve? 50 hours per week, again, plus time. I'd like to take a moment before we move to see if we have any overarching questions as it relates to need. So I'm going to turn to our panelists in our room there.
Christy, we have a couple open questions, but I think we're in good shape. There's a couple that just popped in right now.
There's nothing that's like commonly popping up that might be confusing.
Let me see. From the ones that I've seen, they weren't replicated, like they weren't duplicates, but there's a couple, like I said, that came on. Danielle popped her camera on, so I'm not sure if she wants to expand on something.
Yeah, it's not something that was asked a bunch of times, but just a clarification that I did want to make because this question did come in. Someone asked, well, the state preschool regulations still say 12-month eligibility. They still count foster payments as countable income. I just want to let everyone know the process to update regulations is a multi-year long process. So the regulations themselves will not be updated probably anytime soon, or at least within the next year, probably not until next program year will they actually go into effect. But the changes were made in law as of July 1st. So we do recognize that they are not, the regulations may not be in full alignment on those specific parts. But that doesn't mean that those things are not true. They are true. They are in effect, but the regulations just have not been updated yet.
And when Danielle, just to kind of piggyback on what Danielle's sharing is, so on July 1st, the education code, right, which drives the state preschool regulations was put into effect. And the WIC code, which drives the Department of Social Service child care programs, that was put in effect on July 1st. So every year at this time of the year, we really have to look at those codes versus jumping right into Title V regulations, because as Danielle says, like, it's going to take some time to adjust those. So really be familiar with your education code and WIC codes.
Christy, there's, oh, sorry, go ahead, Danielle.
I was just going to say, and note any management bulletins that come out from CDE and childcare bulletins from CDSS, because that's where those new pieces of guidance will live until regulations are actually changed. So just keep that in mind too.
Thank you so much. Andrea, did you have a few things?
Just wanted to pop in. So when you're thinking about need and calculating the need for a family, it's any time that another adult in the home cannot provide that care. So remember to use that as a lens as well. So when does parent A need service? When does parent B need service? When they overlap is a time when they both need the service. If another parent is available to provide care during that outside time of the overlap, then that would not be a needed time. So just remember that as a lens when you're looking at the need, because we had a couple questions pop up about that. That was it.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. That was actually what I was going to touch on. And kind of just something to think about. So there was a question on here regarding like, what if one parent is job seeking like in the morning, I think, and one job seeks in the afternoon. So really, if we're providing services to the family, like they're already getting services. So like we need to work with the family, like can they do it together, like during overlapping time? And again, like Andrea said, look at the lens of when that care overlaps. And then also when you're determining a schedule, when it's variable, if there's variability in the schedule, utilize the language within your notice of action. So if it varies during a specific time or window, like it varies Wednesday through Friday or Wednesday through Sunday, you could, that's what that box is for you to give details of that schedule, because you might have a variable schedule where it says it's care may is from Sunday through Saturday, not to exceed 5 days. So, payment technicians or whoever is doing it can say, okay, I could only provide reimbursement up to this amount. So that was it. It's kind of a couple of these questions. If your question was not answered, go ahead and pop it in there. That's it.
To kind of piggyback a little bit on what Janie was sharing, is when we get to the notice of action section, which I know that's kind of in the later up to date, we actually have some visual examples of that language that she's talking about. So sometimes if you're a visual person, know that we have some of that visual, that visual action language on there later today. Adam.
I just wanted the opportunity that Shelly had put something in our presenter chat that I think she wanted to bring up.
Hello, there's been several questions about what parents can sign certain forms. And so like the employment verification form, one parent cannot sign for the other parent. So that parent needs to sign their own employment verification form.
And that's truly another person cannot authorize release of that other person's employment information, like when you step back and look at that. So thank you. Okay, are we ready to jump into family fees? Here we go. Again, family fees are applicable to full day programs. And they are definitely another piece of our family data file. So based on the program monitoring instrument, this compliance indicator states that families with children enrolled are assessed the correct monthly fee according to the current fee schedule, with the exception of families or children certified in a part year state preschool program, cash aid, or CPS at risk with a referral or our CHON programs. Evidence of compliance includes the family data file fee assessment records, family fee collection policies and procedures, and receipts provided to parents for payment of family fees. In an effort to increase access to reduce the financial burden due to the COVID-19 pandemic, family fees are waived for all child care and development programs through June 30th, 2023. Contractors must continue to assess family fees, resume the collection of outstanding delinquent fees prior to March of 2020, and report the amount of family fees collected, along with the amount of family fees that were assessed but waived on the fiscal reports. So what might this all look like in a program for this fiscal year? We have the enrollment specialist assess if a family will have a fee at the time of certification or recertification. The assessed fee is then recorded on both the notice of action and application for services. The enrollment specialist informs families that their fee is waived through June 30th, 2023. and providers will be reimbursed for the full amount of the certificate or voucher without deducting family fees. Families with outstanding delinquent fee plans will be informed that the plans for repayment will resume, and the contractor will report the collected and projected fees on the fiscal reports. Let's take a deeper dive into the fees and review overarching strategies to meet the requirements for this fiscal year. In this section, we are going to go over the ins and outs of the family fee schedule, the assessment of fees, exemptions, delinquent fees, parent and provider notification of the assessed fee, and waiver duration. The reporting requirement within the fiscal reports and record keeping. According to the regulation, contractors must use the family fee schedule approved by the Department of Finance. Families with a certified need of less than 130 hours per month are assessed a part-time fee, while families with a certified need of 130 hours or more per month will be assessed a full-time fee. The determination and assessment of a parent's fee is based on family size and their total countable gross monthly income. The fee schedule reflects an adjustment to the lower fee amount. In the event that a family's income is not represented on the fee schedule, the fee will be assessed at the highest fee rate on the chart for their family size. Let's review a couple scenarios on how to determine a family's fee using the fee schedule. In this first scenario, we have a family of 4 with a gross monthly income of $4,547. Under the family of 4 column, their income falls between $4,084 and $4,578. We do an adjustment to the lower fee amount, making their family fee $119 for part-time care or $237 for full-time care. Let's look at another example. In this scenario, we have a family of 3 with a gross monthly income of $5,883. Under the family of 3 column, their income falls between $5,795 and $5,956. We do an adjustment to the lower fee amount, making their family fee $250 for part-time care or $504 for full-time care. Okay, so now it is your turn. We're going to leave this fee chart up here and we're going to run a poll, and I'd like for you to, we're calling this one Name That Fee. Okay, so there's 5 situations on here or scenarios on here. If you can, using this chart, answer the questions on the poll, and then we will review these. Give everyone a few minutes to do so. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll give everyone just about 30 more seconds. Lots of great participation in answering these polls. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's look over these. Actually, I'm going to turn that off so we can use our screen and end the poll and share the results with you. Okay, number one, the Halberts are a family of three. Okay, we're going to go to this family of three column. Can you see my cursor, Adam or Janie, when I'm doing this on the fee chart?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Perfect. So we have a family of three with a gross monthly income of $3,950. So we're going to go down the chart. Here we go. And it's going to fall right in here, right? $3,950. We're going to adjust to the lower fee amounts. We're going to bump down here, right? So the correct answer, part-time care 130, full-time hours $260 per month. Okay, just something to keep in mind, and this is where a lot of folks get confused, is on the family fee schedule, make your arrow here go down to the lower fee amount. On day one, when we were looking at the admission priority chart, that arrow goes the opposite direction. So I always tell folks, on whatever tool you're using, draw that arrow on there, because that's something really easy to get confused between the two tables. Okay, number two, the Schrutes are a family of four. So we're going to go here to column of four with a gross monthly income of $3,300. I'm just jumbly today. $3,736. Okay, if you notice, that fee amount is not on the chart, right? So it's under $3,737. So in that case, in this scenario, they would have zero fee. Okay, so zero fee for part-time, zero for full-time, because it's less than the amount identified in this first row of the family fee chart. Okay, again, you're going to bump down. Number three, the Scotts are a family of two with a gross monthly income of $6,480. Okay, we're going to go way down here. And since their income is not reflected on the fee chart, then they're going to have the highest fee amount assigned here. So in this situation, $195 for full-time or $298. Again, just as a side note, the chart that we are looking on the screen is the income chart for the Department of Social Service Programs. However, it follows, just like the admission priority, it follows the same guidelines in determining the fee. Number four, Kelly is developing a cheat sheet for staff on how to determine a part-time, full-time fee. How is part-time fee defined? Again, it's families with a certified need of less than 130 hours per month. And number five, Kelly should include a note to the cheat sheet that the family schedule reflects an adjustment to the higher fee amount. Okay, this is false. It is to, again, put that arrow going to the lower fee amount on this chart. Now that we know our way around the fee schedule, let's review the factors in determining the fee to be assessed for each family. Based on the regulations, we are required to assess family fees at initial certification, recertification, or if a parent voluntarily reports changes to reduce their family fees. Note that if a family is moved between, say, part day state preschool, which never has a fee, and full day state preschool, wait until recertification to assess whether or not the family will have a fee. This means that at that point in time, that snapshot in time at certification and recertification, when assessing the family fee, you will be using the current family size, the family's gross income, and the child's certified hours of care as documented on the application for services. In the event that a family has more than one child, the fee is going to be assessed based on the family's child who is enrolled for the longest period. You will need to review and determine which child has the most certified hours of care. At the point or snapshot in time at, say, certification, based on the certified hours of care, a part-time, full-time, or both a part-time and full-time fee is assessed. So let's expand on this a little bit more. When assessing fees for families with consistent schedules, it's pretty cut and dry. You're going to use the verified number of days and hours, or total number of hours parent consistently or expects to work each week, as documented on the application for services. When assessing fees for families with variable schedules that are inconsistent or unstable, the determination will be based on the highest number of hours worked in any given week within the 2-month window preceding certification. If at the time of certification, the parent does not have a work history, assess a flat monthly fee based on the verified hours the employer expects the parent to work, or the self-employment documentation provided by the parent. There are some scenarios that you will need to assess both a full-time and part-time fee. When a family's child is assigned both a school and vacation schedule, include on the notice of action which months the part-time and full-time fee applies. In addition, it is ideal to also add these specifics to the fee note section within the application for services. If agency policy allows for a family to voluntarily request 0 service hours, such as a leave of absence, for a time period during the eligibility period, the time period of the gap in services must be indicated on the notice of action approving the change in services. For alternative payment programs, the fee stays the same as the fee is based on the parent's need for services. As a reminder, participants may use an alternate provider when their regular provider is closed or submit a receipt for payments made to another service provider. I don't have the portrait on here, but this last one applies to alternative payment programs. When a Title V center, such as state preschool, general child care, family child care, home work, or migrant child care is not open a month that results in services being available for less than 130 hours, families shall be assessed both a flat full-time and part-time fee. Again, include this on the notice of action, which months the part-time and full-time fee applies. In addition, there's a spot for this on the application for services. Okay, before we move on to the next section, let's take a minute to check in with folks here. Oh, this just has 2 quick questions. I launched that poll. We'll give everyone a few minutes. This is in regards to those consistent and variable schedules that we were talking about. Okay, let's go over these responses here. I'm just holding off a few more seconds. The poll got really busy right there when I said that. Okay, let's go through these answers. I'm sharing the results with you. When assessing fees for families with consistent schedules, RETA should ensure that both A and B use the verified number of days and hours, and use the total number of hours parent consistently or expects to work each week as documented on the application for services. And number 2, when assessing fees for a variable schedule, RETA should use the highest number of hours worked in any given week within the 2-month window preceding certification. Okay, again, when it's a variable schedule, you're going to go back and look at the highest number of hours worked in any given week within the 2-month window preceding certification. When the initial enrollment is not on the first day of the month, the contractor can assess a fee based on certified hours for the partial month and another fee for subsequent months. For example, a family works approximately 160 hours per month and their initial enrollment date is May 20th. For the month of May, the family will utilize less than 130 hours. In this example, the family will be assessed a part-time fee for May and a full-time fee for each subsequent months of service. Family fees are also reassessed at the time of recertification. A notice of action must be issued when the recertification of the file results in a change in the fee amount. If the reassessment results in a decrease, the effective date will fall on the first day of the month that follows the issue date of the notice of action. If the reassessment results in an increase, the fee will become effective on the first day of the month after the 14 or 19-day appeal request period is exhausted. For example, it is identified that a family will have an increase in their fee during the recertification process, and is hand-delivered a notice of action on May 5th, giving them 14 days to request an appeal. Since the appeal deadline occurs on May 19th, the new fee will be effective on the first day of the month following the appeal timeline. In this scenario, it would fall on June 1st. Let's look at another example. It is identified that the Halbert family will have an increase in their fee and is hand-delivered a notice of action on May 25th, giving them 14 days to request an appeal. Since the appeal deadline occurs on June 8th, the new fee will become effective on July 1st. Some families are exempt from paying family fees. No fees for families receiving CalWORKS cash aid, and no fee for families with children receiving childcare and development services from Part Day California State Preschool, severely disabled CHOM programs, or for the federal-based migrant programs. In addition, families with children who have been identified as at risk of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, or receiving child protective services may be exempt from paying a family fee for 12 months. If the referral, as we shared yesterday, determines the fee waiver to be necessary. Danielle, can I put you on the spot for a minute? I just want to make sure this part's clear. I'm sorry. If you don't know, then we don't have to answer, but so I know in law it says that at-risk children and CPS children may be exempt from paying fees for 12 months. In state preschool, now that we have 24 months, is it still basically 12 months that they're exempt from the fee? So we would still look at their income, or is it for their entire certification period?
It is they're only exempt from fees for 12 months, and that's statutory. That hasn't changed. Yeah. So just 12 months, and then you would assess a fee, and then just note on the notice of action at time of certification when that changes and when the fee goes into effect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's check in again, and we're gonna go through a poll here really quick. Okay, I just launched a poll. It has 3 questions. And if you are a part-day program and you've joined us here in the last few minutes, just please be patient with us. We just have a little bit more left to go in the family fee section. So thank you for joining us. We'll give everyone a minute to go through these 3 questions. Lots of activity on the polls. We will conclude in about 30 more seconds. Give everyone time to get their answers in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end these polls, and then we will go through reviewing all of the answers. Okay, I'm sharing the results. Number 1, Dwight completed his recertification on October 21st, which resulted in a decrease in his fee. His new family fee is going to become effective on November 1st. Now, Nellie completed her recertification on August 10th, has been assessed a higher family fee. When will her newly assessed fee take effect? September 1st, right? So we're going to take into consideration that appeal period. It still falls in August, so then it'll be September 1st. Kevin, the reviewer, came across a family data file that is paying family fees. What is not an exemption? Okay, what is not an exemption? And that is the family that has a disabled family member. That is not an exemption. That was a tricky question. Okay, so let's finish going through our family fee slides. We'll have one more poll, and then we will check in with our Q&A folks. Let's now discuss families that have a delinquent fee plan from March of, I want to say, 2022. So during the 22-23 fiscal year, so this fiscal year, you must continue the collection of previous year's delinquent fees and document your attempts to collect delinquent fees to ensure there is proper documentation to allow the contractor to write off the outstanding fees if not successful. For example, this might be done by maintaining records of invoicing or records of attempts to collect directly on the plan for payment for delinquent fees. Note that families may not be disenrolled for non-payment of previous year's delinquent family fee plans. There's not a lot of these out here anymore, but there are some that still exist. So contractors should work with families and update prior delinquent family fee plans accordingly. Let's now discuss what the regulations say about notifying families and for our AP programs, providers about their assessed fee. While families will continue to be assessed a fee during this fiscal year, contractors must notify families and providers that the fees will be waived for both initial certifications and currently enrolled families through June 30th, 2023. And these fees will resume on July 1st, 2023. So what might this look like in the program? Notification to families and providers may include a combination of methods. The most common method is using the notice of action, or some agencies use a formal notice or letter issued by the contractor that is included along with the notice of action. And similarly, an email notification might be used. Whatever form of notification you're using for this specific area, make sure you keep those records. Please note that contractors must issue a notice of action prior to June 30th, 2023 to notify families that family fee collection will resume effective July 1st, 2023. So add this to your calendars for the beginning of next year so that we make sure we don't forget this piece. And let's look at the reporting requirement for waived fees for this fiscal year. All childcare and development contractors are required to report the amount of family fees that were collected. So those are those delinquent keys from prior years. And the amount of fees that were assessed but waived for this fiscal year. Within the specified family fees collected for certified children line on the fiscal report, contractors must record the amount of family fees that were collected. And within the waived family fees for certified children line, contractors will report the projected or anticipated fees that would have been collected from families, as this will ensure both departments reimburse contractors appropriately. And finally, the regulations state that we must maintain a record of each family's fee assessment. The fee must be documented on the application for services and notice of action. Note that in a typical year, the file would also include things such as invoices and of course our receipt for payment. However, for this fiscal year, fee record keeping in most cases are going to only include the application for services and notice of action. Okay. I'm going to run the final family fee conclusion poll. I just launched that, and then we're going to check in with our Q&A folks. So that's might be hiding in the corner of your screen. This one has 4. Okay, we'll give everyone just about 20 more seconds and then we will go over these polls and then we are going to check in with our folks in the Q&A world. Okay, let's go over these questions. Let me share the results with you. Number 1, during the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, Kelly must ensure staff are still assessing fees to all families enrolled in full day programs. That is true. Full day programs must assess fees. Number 2, Retta has several families that had established a payment plan for delinquent fees prior to the pandemic. What must Retta do? She must resume the collection of those fees and work with families to update their fee plans. We do not disenroll them. Nobody put that, so kudos. Number 3, during this fiscal year, Pete does not have to worry about reporting fees.
Christy, did we lose your audio? Okay, I think we lost Christy, but that is no worries.
I think we did, and that's okay. So Christy was going over the poll results, so
Yes.
no worries there. Janie, I think we're just going to the last poll. So I think it's okay if maybe we move to Q&A while
Yes.
Christy has an opportunity to rejoin. And then we'll do Q&A, and then we're going to go to break because it's we're about to jump into the rest of the presentation. So that actually works out just well. And I will check in with Christy. Janie, do you mind leading kind of the Q&A here?
Not a problem. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, so just bear
Thank
with me
you.
for just a second. So let me know if you got me on there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to folks on the back end. If there's anything or any questions that were repetitive or things that we want to go ahead and address with the group before we break, and then allow folks to jump on in for application for services. So while we get folks on that would like to clarify any questions, I'm just going to go through the Q&A really quick and answer a couple that I had flagged.
Jeannie, I know there were, I'm sorry, I'm having
Go
issues
for it.
with my audio and video today too.
No,
There
you're
were
good.
several questions that rose to the top on which fee schedule to use for the CSPP side of the house.
Yes.
So I don't know if anyone wants to take that one because it did come up several times. So just,
Yes.
and we want to make sure we're giving out the correct direction.
No, I totally agree. In the meantime, while we have folks from either House, CDE, and CDSS that would like to jump in, I want to just go ahead and make a note that for the
Hi, sorry, I'm talking.
We lost her sound too.
It's Friday. Hey guys.
Yeah, we made it, we made it 8.5 hours in. I'm going to update everyone on what's happening. Christy, so she'll come back momentarily. So obviously it was an unexpected. And I think Danielle, you are having us a connectivity issues too. Janie, I am going to pull an audible because
Yes.
let's take our break now because that's what we're going to do next.
Break
We're
anyhow.
going to do break. And then when we return, family fees, Q&A. Then we're going to jump into, is it application for services, Janie, after that, correct?
Yes, well, yes, we're gonna go
Okay.
ahead and wait for folks. There's a question that we
Perfect.
wanted to go ahead and discuss, and then we're gonna jump on to application for services.
Hey, when the world tells you need a break, you need a break. So we're going to
Right?
do that.
They're forcing our break. Oh, yay.
Well, I'm going to do it before I lose audio and power too. So, okay, we're going to go to break. 10 minutes. I'm going to put a timer up. Have a great break. And then we will be right back when we get back, folks. Thank
Sounds
you.
like a plan.
Okay, awesome. Okay, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and welcome us back from break. We have all our panelists back, and I think they all have electricity now. So we are going to be ready to jump right in. I just want to mention that normally the third day during the break is when I go over some upcoming events we have, particularly in response to all the, hey, where can I get this form that Christy and Janie are referencing, how to access Monarch Link's resources and the wonderful trainings they have like this one on their website. I'm not gonna go through that now since now we're just a couple minutes behind because we need to catch up for the tech. So what I'll do is I'm going to email all of you. So I just want you to be lookout for that email. So a lot of you have asked like, hey, where can I get the resource? I'm going to follow up with you. I'll give you everything you need after this event. I think it's probably the best use of our time. So with that in mind, I want to pick up with the Q&A. Family fees. And so Andrea, if I could articulating a question that kind of covers a lot of questions we were having about updated charts and such.
Okay, so we are still waiting for a definitive answer on which chart to use for CSPP, so hold on for that one. And I know there were some questions about income calculation that we are also scenarios and some more information on that as well. So we are waiting for clarification, so please be patient, but those as we get information for you. Adam, was there?
No, I thank you, Andrea. I appreciate it. Janie, are you back to able to lead through the rest of the Q&A now?
I sure am. I have items that I just wanted to speak on. If you guys want to add to it, feel free. But one of the items you know that CDSS released their family fee chart, and Questley had a family that was certified prior to that release. Do we reassess their fee with the new family fee? Because it might be in the best interest of the family. So we cannot just automatically reassess everybody's fee. We are, as contractors are strongly encouraged to remind families that they are able to request for their fees to be reassessed, especially if we have some of those families where their fee will either fall off, they would no longer have a family fee, or if it would be lower. So again, just contractors are strongly encouraged to inform families of that. The other item was in regards to, can we assess a part-time fee for some months and a full-time fee for others, for instances where maybe the centers are have less hours, less than 130 on a particular month, let's say for December. And yes, we will go through what this might look like on the application for services, but there's a specific section or a specifics section on the application for services where you can note what months a parent would have a part-time fee and what month they would have a full-time fee. And then you can also indicate that in writing on the notice of action, which again, we will provide some scenarios of where, like what that might look like in box, I believe it's box 7 of the notice of action. So just wanted to highlight those two. Anything else, panelists, that you would want to speak on with the rest of the group?
Anything from CDE or DSS specifically that you wanted to elevate or share your voice on? Just want to give you an opportunity.
Okay, I'm hearing none, Adam, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Christy. There was a scenario that we wanted to walk through. There was some kind of a question that we had towards the tail end of the presentation yesterday that we wanted to just walk through and go over. So I can go ahead and transition us over to that.
Janie, I know we have a different order of slides, but can you put the second slide first when you go through it, and then we'll bump back? I think I'd like to go through the question that was asked yesterday and then go through what the regulations say. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna read through some of this. So at the kind of towards the end of yesterday during our Q&A, we had this question brought up by a few different participants. And we're reviewing this now because we went back and spoke as a group to make sure we're all on the same page and we're all saying the same thing. This is follow up from income before we go into application for services. So the questions were, parent started new job and has received 2 weekly pay stubs. Parent has received any other income in the prior 2, except for the 2 weeks of pay stubs. Do we add the 2 stubs together to reflect the monthly income, or use the weekly frequency of pay formula? 2 weeks of 0 income and the 2 pay stubs amounts. So the question is, collect 2 pay, have the parent complete a self-declaration of 0 income. You're going to add the 2 pay stubs together because that truly parent's month of income for that 4-week time period. So you're not going to use the frequency of pay formula in this scenario. Can you go to the next slide, Janie?
Yes.
And we came to this conclusion based on kind of really going back and studying the regulation. So for CDSS programs, it's going to be your Title V 18084. And for state preschool programs, the regulation noted is 17762. And this regulation states that payroll check stubs or an independently drafted letter from the employer or other record of wages issued by the employer from either month of the 2-month window immediately preceding the initial certification or the recertification of eligibility for services. So this is what the regulation says. And then I have a few notes just to kind of expand on this. This means that we collect any 4 weeks of countable income from either month of the window immediately preceding certification. Documentation from the 2-month window may include payroll check stubs, an independently drafted letter from the employer, or other record of wages issued by the employer. We had a lot of conversation regarding the independently drafted letter. So the independently drafted letter based on this regulation would just be another way that you can gain evidence of income from that 2-month window immediately preceding certification. Danielle or Vanessa, is there anything you'd like to add to this piece?
Not from me.
Okay. Janie, would you like to go ahead and hit on emphasis?
I sure would.
Okay,
So let me
thank
go
you,
ahead
thank
and
you.
switch gears. No problem. I'm going to go ahead and switch gears so we can go ahead and get started with application for services. So bear with me just one moment. All right, so welcome back to everyone that has joined us. We're very glad to have you here today, and we'll go ahead and get started with application for services. So the application for services section, we're going to go ahead and walk through the application for services in a step-by-step process based on how to complete each section of the application and discuss what each area is linked to in regards to supporting documentation. The regulations state that contractors must designate a staff person authorized to certify the family or child eligibility. And prior to initial enrollment and at the time of recertification, authorized representative must certify each family's or child's eligibility for services. After reviewing the completed application and documentation contained in the family data file. An application for services is completed at and recertification. Preschool contractors They have 120 calendar days prior to the first day of the beginning of the new preschool year to certify eligibility and enroll families into their program. For full-day state preschool programs, 24-month eligibility starts on the date the contractor's authorized representatives sign the application for services, certifying that eligibility and, if applicable, need criteria has been met. And for the California Department of Social Services, 12-month eligibility starts on the date the contractor's authorized representatives sign the application for services, certifying that eligibility criteria has been met. Families will be notified 30 days in advance of what is required to recertify. However, shall not be required to bring in document 12 months plus 1 day after the service's start date. A family will be disenrolled if the recertification process is not completed within the designated 50-day recertification period. And if a child is aging and there is no program or classroom to transfer them to, may request a temporary gap in services up to their recertification date until an opening becomes available. The period of care is available that must be clearly indicated on the notice of action recertification. So let's take a moment to review what this might look like in practice for a full day program. So on September 8th, 2021, RETA approved parent Karen's initial services. Time has passed and Karen's eligibility period was coming to a conclusion. Therefore, on August 9th, 2022, RETA informed Karen of what will be required to recertify of the eligibility period. RETA also scheduled a recertification appointment for September 9th, 2022, in order to review Karen's current documentation and determine if the family is eligible to continue receiving services. Program staff must make every effort to make the certification and recertification process convenient for families. And a family will be disenrolled if the recertification process is not completed within the designated 50-day recertification period. So looking back at our scenario, if Karen fails to complete the recertification process to verify ongoing eligibility within the 50-day window, a notice of action to discontinue services must be issued. In this example, the notice of action is issued on October 28th, which meets the 50-day recert window requirement, with an effective date of November 16th, which day appeal date requirement if the NOA is mailed. The application for services must be completed by staff in consultation with the parent. Parents should not be completing it as they will not know all of the codes, boxes, and additional information needed for a properly completed application. The regulations and application for services must contain very specific information. Think of the application as a summary or overview of the family's story. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quickly launch a poll just to check for understanding. So you will see it pop up on your screen. Oops, sorry, I pushed the wrong button. Okay, you should see it launch on your screen here. Couple minutes, and then we'll go ahead and review the responses together. Okay, we have quite a bit of activity still on the polls. So I'm going to give folks about 20 more seconds and then we'll go ahead and close the poll and then we will review responses together. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Okay, so question number 1. As part of the application process, RETA includes an application for services within the enrollment packet for the parent or caretaker to complete on their own. True or false? So correct response is false. Remember, the application for services must be completed in consultation with the parent. Parents aren't going to know how to complete all of the details on the boxes, provide the codes, all of the little details that we know, the FIPS code and so on and so forth. So the application for services should not be completed by the parent. You want to complete that in consultation with based on the information that they've provided within their enrollment. RETA is preparing to mail out recertification packets due this upcoming month within the full-day state preschool program. What is the earliest date you can require a parent to submit recertification documents by? And remember, for a full-day state preschool program, they are certified for not less than 24 months. So the earliest date a parent can be required to submit documentation would be plus 1 day after the service's start date. Now, in a different scenario, Jan is preparing to mail out recertification packets to families enrolled in the alternative payment program. What is the earliest date she can require a parent to submit recertification documents? So for Department of Social Services programs, the duration of services 12 months. So the correct answer is 12 months is start date. And question number 4. RETA is established a state preschool enrollment work plan for the upcoming school year. How many days in advance can she start the certification process? So the correct answer is 120 days prior to school opening. So programs are able to start the application process 120 days prior to that start date. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the presentation unless anybody in the back end, are there any questions that pertain to the sections the application for services section I just covered that require a little bit more detail? All right, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and continue on. So let's start going over the application's details. So within the application for services, you would want to insert the name of the agency providing or funding childcare services in the agency namespace. A unique family identification number or family case number must be assigned by the agency to each family. Enter the unique identification number in this space. Please note that parent social security numbers are not to be requested or used as a family's identification or case number. Next, the initial subsidized service date is the earliest month and year that the children or the child or children as listed on the application for services first started receiving subsidized child services from your agency. Every 9600 must have a month and year entered in this field. If there is a break of 3 months or more, enter the month childcare resumed. So if there is a break, enter the original date assistance began, it resumed. In the type of application, check the box after initial if this is taken by the agency. named on the application. Check the box after recertification if this is the second or later application taken by the agency listed on the application. If the child lives with only one parent or caretaker who is legally or full for the child, check the box within the single parent or caretaker space. For the first adult living in the same household as the children, complete all items in section 1, including address information. And this would be the address information as documented on the proof of residency in the family data file. So you want all this information to align. If a second parent or caretaker lives in the same household as the child and is included in the calculation of family size, complete all items in section 1B. For the purpose of certification of eligibility, a parent or caretaker is a person who has responsibility for the child. For example, a biological parent, step-parent, grandparent, foster or adoptive parent, or a legal guardian may be considered as a parent or caretaker if they are legally or financially responsible for the child. The FIPS code consists of a state code, which is a 2-digit number, and a county code, which is a 3-digit number. The county codes may be found within the application for service instructions. In our example, the code for and the code for San Joaquin County is 07 based on the instructions. Therefore, in this example, the FIPS code would be 06077. So let's go ahead and move on to section 2. Eligibility is based on either child or family eligibility. For a family to receive services, parents must provide documentation of eligibility in one or more of these categories. A child is eligible if they have an open child protective services case when the child has been identified as being at risk of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, or for state preschool programs if the child has exceptional needs. Or if the family does not have a qualifying child under CPS at risk with exceptional needs in state preschool, then the family eligibility criteria, such as homelessness, current CalWORKs cachet recipient, reside within the attendance boundaries, or in a free or reduced price meal school for state preschool, or be income eligible. Based on the eligibility documentation provided by the parent, check all eligibility criteria that the family qualifies under. For full-day programs, all parents counted in the family size must have a verifiable need for services. For each parent or caretaker or other adults included in the family size, note within A or B all of the reasons for do not complete the section for part-day state preschool programs. And attach the appropriate documentation. Identify the main reason for needing services with an asterisk more than one reason. So moving on down to part C of section 2. For each parent or caretaker, enter the name and address or training institution as appropriate. Also note the beginning and ending hours for each day that the parent is employed or in a training program. Moving on to section 3. Within the family's monthly income space, enter the family's total adjusted gross monthly income from all income must be verified and attached to an income worksheet that is maintained in the family data file. Check each box to identify all sources of family income. So within this box section, the boxes are to be completed for CalWORKs recipients only. The gray shaded boxes are not to be counted in the family's total adjusted monthly income. Enter the total family size, including all parents or caretakers listed within section 1 and all children listed within section 4 of the application for services and aligned with the proof of family size maintained in the family data file. In this space, mark yes if the parent is currently serving active duty in the U.S. military, or no if the parent is not. Mark yes if the parent is currently a member of either a National Guard unit or military reserve unit, or no if the parent is not within this section. So this brings us to the end of page 1. Please note that if the family includes more than 2 adults, or to record additional employers or training institutions for the parents listed, use a second application and attach it to the completed application. So now that we've concluded page 1, let's go ahead and do a quick poll before we go on to page 2 of the application for services. Okay, so you should see it launch on your page now, and then I'll give you guys a few minutes and then we'll check back and review responses as a group. Okay, still see quite a bit of activity. I'm going to give folks about 1 more minute, and then we'll go ahead and end the poll and review responses. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and view results, or share the results. So question number 1, RETA must include the initial subsidized service date on each application for services. This is and the correct answer is the earliest month and year child receives services. So remember that earliest month and year child receives services, and if there's a break of 3 months or more, then Question number 2, Ryan is a single parent looking to enroll his child Leslie into the program. What must Ryan provide at the time of certification? Correct answer is self-certify single parent status on the 9600. So within section 1, they would need to check that box, and then once we get to page 2, they will need to also provide their initials box. So we'll go through that section as well. And then RETA is inputting an application for services for the Schrute family who qualifies for multiple eligibility criteria. She do. So the correct answer is check all categories the family qualifies under. So if they have multiple, maybe they receive under a current CalWORKs cashier's recipient, and they also have a child with exceptional needs, you'd want to select all eligibility criteria that the parent qualifies for. All right. remove this. Again, checking in with our panelists. Is there anything that I reviewed that needs further clarification, or can we continue on to page 2? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and
Yeah,
continue
I think
on.
we're okay. Adam, did you have anything? We're doing really great in the Q&A.
Yes, I see there's only a few in there.
Yeah, really great. I guess just that question 1, Janie, just because of results. So just if anyone didn't like Janie's explanation, you're still like, wait, hold on, I selected the wrong one and I'm not sure why it's the wrong one. Just go ahead and put it in the queue. Pause and have an opportunity to review that or type out an answer for you. I just wanted to notice the results were a little split.
Yes,
Is
thank
this
you,
in
Adam.
regards to the initial subsidized service date?
Yes.
Is that, okay. So basically the minimum is to include the month and year. Many databases and so forth puts like the first date. So it might say like September 22nd, 2022. That is totally fine because that is the, it includes the minimum. Maybe I'm not answering this right. Okay.
No,
Read?
yes. And
Is
the
that
least
what
is
it's-
just the earliest month and year the child receives
Yeah.
services, and it'd be that first child
Yes.
in that family.
Yes. And if it has more like the actual day, totally fine, as long as it has the minimum, the month and the year. And we're talking about the date that's up on the top of the notice of action. Janie's getting ready to go down to page 2, which I think also has lots of dates at the bottom that she's going to go through.
Yeah, so it's this section right here.
Yeah, perfect.
Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on to page 2. So within page 2 in section 4, list all children included in the family size that are 18 and under for whom the parent is responsible. Data is required in columns 1, 2, and 3 for all children 18 and under counted in the family size, whether services for the child are provided or not. These columns include the full name of the child, gender, and birth date. If there are more than 5 children counted in the family size, use a second 9600 form to record the additional children and attach it to the completed 9600 form. The remaining columns 4 through 10 apply to children served by your agency. So starting with column 4, review the adjustment factor codes provided in the form instructions to determine if a code is applicable. If no adjustment code is used, leave this box blank. As self-identified by the parent, under column 5, indicate a Y if the child is Hispanic or Latino. Otherwise, enter an N within this box, sorry, almost switched the gears. And under column 6, record the self-identified race code or codes. At least one code must be entered, but you may enter all codes that apply for each child. So let's bird walk through this for a moment to discuss the difference between ethnicity and race, as these are often not understood by many. Hispanic or Latino origin can be viewed as the heritage, nationality group, lineage, or country of birth of the person or person's parents or ancestors before their arrival in the United States. Hispanic or Latino refers to a person of Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin regardless of race. People who identify their origin as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish may be any race. Race is primarily associated with the physical features of a person. In the end, both ethnicity and race are self-identified by the parent. Moving on to column 7, titled Native Language. See the Native Language Code section in the application instructions to determine the native language code that should should be entered in this space. Use only those native. For students reported with a primary language other than English, report the primary language students, as stated on the state-approved home language. Moving on to see, to look at the program code section in the instructions, or I guess I should rephrase that. You'd want to go ahead and look at the instructions and review the program code section to determine the program code or codes that should be entered in column 8. Enter one code per line for each child receiving childcare services through this certification. In column 9, enter the type of care base of the application for services. So in this example, we record 04 as this is a licensed center-based facility. In addition, record the provider or site name in the space provided. Moving on to column 10, hours of care per day. Enter the amount of approved child development services needed each day. In this example, Cece is enrolled in a part-day preschool. Therefore, we enter 3 hours per day, Monday through Friday. For preschool-age children, use only the upper line to record the amount of care needed. If the child is enrolled in more than one program or with more than one provider, use additional lines to record the information. In this example, in addition to a part-day preschool, Cece is enrolled in the alternative payment program. Based on the parent's verified need for services, as indicated on the first page of the application, services are needed for 10 hours per day, Monday through Friday. On school days, Cece will be approved to attend preschool for 3 hours per day and 7 hours per day under the alternative payment program. We use the upper line marked S to indicate the amount of care needed on days she is at preschool. 10 hours per day are approved for days the preschool is closed. We use the lower line marked V to indicate the amount of time needed during vacation or non-school days. So now we're going to move on to section 5, certification and signature of parent or caretaker. Read and explain the conditions of eligibility and need to the parent or caretaker and make sure he or she understands them before signing the application. This is a very intimidating form and has a lot of legal jargon on there, so just really take the time to read and explain each section to parents. As you review the application for services, do not rush. Take your time to review each section with the parent, including the supporting documentation. This is not only an opportunity for you to check the facts with the parent, but also to ensure the application for services matches and aligns with the supporting documentation. With that said, when reviewing section 5, the parent must initial in this space if they are self-certifying single parent status as indicated in the single parent or caretaker box within section 1 of the application. The parent or caretaker completing the application must sign and date the form and indicate his or her relationship to the child. Please note that 2 signatures are not required. Use the time. You'd want to really use this time as an opportunity to educate the parent or caretaker that they must sign using their full legal signature. So this is the same signature that they will be using to sign the daily sign in out sheets at your center or with the provider. Moving on to section 6, which is family fee. In this section, if the family is assessed a fee, you'd want to indicate it here. So earlier when we were discussing the family fee section and I referred to the specific section, this is what I was referring to. If both a part-time and full-time fee is assessed, the field label specific should explain the specific months a parent will owe a full-time and part-time fee. And finally, in section 7, which is used for office use only, the agency representative must complete the items in this section, indicating whether the application has been approved The application is not complete until the signature of the authorized agency representative is present, along with their title, phone number, and date. The application is being approved by the agency. The signature of supervisor is an optional field and is not required. This may be if your agency has your process or procedures in place where a secondary verification needs to be made. There is a nice little area for a supervisor to go ahead and approve that, but it is not required. And either of these spaces indicate the date the notice of action was sent or given to the parent. As a reminder, a notice of action must be mailed or delivered within 30 days of a parent signature on the application for services. And we'll be going into more detail regarding notices of action within the next section. And finally, the first date of subsidized services is recorded in this space. So as Chrissy had mentioned, whenever on the first page it has the first date of subsidized services, the first page requires you to just put the month and the year, but here you can actually put in the full date of when it was their first date of subsidized services. The last date of enrollment is left blank until the family leaves services. Once you have completed the family certification, file the original completed application along with the supporting documents in the family data file and give a copy to the parent. Remember, as you start to build the family data file, think of it as telling the family story through documentation. Do not remove the earlier application. So you'd want it to just chronologically have any prior application and then the newest one up on top. So let's go ahead and do the final conclusion polling for application for services before we jump into Q&A and then NOA section. So let me go ahead and do the final poll for application for services and give everyone a few minutes to go ahead and go through those scenarios. All right, looks like folks are still heavily engaging in the poll. So I'm going to give folks just a few more seconds to go ahead and plug in their responses. And then we'll go ahead and end the poll and review responses together. All right, looks like it's slowing down. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. All right, so question number 1. Within section 4 of the application for services, RETA should only include children who are needing services. And the correct response is false. Remember, any child 18 and under that is counted in the family size would be included within that section. And then if you have any, if you have children above and beyond the amount of spaces provided or allotted, just attach a secondary application to your application for services. Upon completion of the application for services, Retta should sit down with Ryan to review each section carefully before signing. And great job, the answer is true. Like I said, the application can be a little intimidating to our family, so we just want to make sure we go through every section, ensure that it's accurately reflected based off of what's in our supportive documentation, and parent understands and agrees to what they're signing. Question number 3. When assessing family fees, Retta will assess fees based on the oldest child, the youngest child, or the child with the largest monthly number of approved certified hours. So the correct answer is based off of the child with the largest monthly number of approved certified hours. And question number 4. So as part of the application process, Retta must file the original application for services and supporting documentation and give a copy to the parent or caretaker. And this is correct. You do not want to hand over your application for services that the parent signed. Wet signature, or if they provide a wet signature, you provide that in the file. I know folks, especially during COVID, started using electronic databases to collect an electronic signature. So file your original application for services in the file, and you can always provide parents with a copy of that application for services. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and check in with our panelists to see if there are any questions in the Q&A that require a little bit more clarification before we jump into notice of action.
Janie, there's a lot of questions regarding the adjustment factor code on the application for services. So just so you know, if you're looking for those adjustment factor codes, you can find them in the instructions of the 9600. So many times we have our databases that just print out those first 2 pages of the application for services. But if you actually pull up the application for services, that's where what Janie has on the screen here, you can find those adjustment factor codes. As a side note, we do have a question into the Department of Education Fiscal regarding what adjustment factor code for the purpose of the application for services would be. I'm not sure if you can answer this, Danielle, because of now the 3-year-olds, would they be listed simply as code 27 toddler? Or should we wait for guidance on that, and in the meantime just leave it blank for state preschool?
What I would note for this is that the application for services has not been updated based on the new changes. So, I mean, even the eligibility for children with exceptional needs is not noted on there. So, like as far as it being a complete eligibility category is not on the application. So I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
But also noting, like we said yesterday, that the application for services is not like a contractor is not required to use this form. And you can use whatever form you want. You can adjust it however you want, however you need to make sure all the information is required there. And I don't know if there's like a specific code that we would put on there. I know there is, like when you enter it into reporting, they will have something specific for fiscal reporting for adjustment factors, but I don't know if that's the same for the application.
Well, I think just to kind of talk informally here, the adjustment factor codes on here have been here for many, many, many years, way before we started using the electronic reporting system that we have now for reporting like child attendance, like on the fiscal. So, I mean, if I was think that's for your preschool age children, it's not going to hurt anything. However, I think the important piece is almost all programs are using databases now. You need to find out what little button needs clicked, or if it's driven off of the child's birthday, to make sure that those adjustment factors, when you're doing your fiscal reports, are properly being applied, such as a child exceptional needs, severely disabled, because you earn more on your contract in a typical year for those children with exceptional needs and severely disabled. So for now, like if I was operating program, because I don't have anything different, if I was operating a preschool program, I would just leave that blank because it's still considered a preschool age child. And I would just make sure that on the fiscal side of things that it's being reported correctly and it's linked to that child's birth date. Does that sound kind of business as usual?
or writing on their 3-year-old adjustment factor, like you can write in there something that's, I mean, these are like, as long as you're noting what it is, I mean, if it doesn't fit in this category, obviously this hasn't been updated. And I honestly have no idea even if the toddler adjustment factor and the 3-year-old adjustment factor are the same or different or anything. So it might be confusing to put toddler in for that sense.
Exactly, because right now, basically, if it's a preschool child, it's blank. But now we have this whole new thing with the adjustment factor. So I guess at your agency, do make your best judgment and do it consistently moving forward across all your programs until further guidance is provided. And just make sure that on the fiscal side of things that it's connected correctly, because that's really what's going to, you know, be looked at in the long run. Andrea, you're shaking your head.
And I would also just note, I was just going to note that also, if you are concerned about if you're doing it correctly or not, reach out to your PQI consultant. Ultimately, they're the people that are going to monitor you. So if you're in connection with them and you're saying, hey, I'm not sure what to put here, and they give you guidance of what to put there, when they come out and monitor you, then you have that information and it's in alignment with whatever they're going to be looking for. So whenever in doubt, always reach out to your PQI consultant. That's what they're here. They're there to provide technical assistance. They may not have an answer for this specific thing quite yet, but they could tell you what to do in the meantime, or they could tell you to hold off and leave it blank until then. But at least then you would have that directive and guidance from your PQI consultant, so that if you are getting monitored this year, for example, then you could say, hey, this is what you told me to do, so this is what I've done in the meantime. So just also noting that.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions that common questions that have been coming up that any of our folks from the Department of Social Services would like to reiterate or bring forward?
Not at this time. Esme or Shelley, do you have anything?
No, I don't. Thank you, Jonathan.
No, I don't either. Thanks.
Can I actually put everyone on the spot and ask a question? And it doesn't have to be answered now, but if the signature on the application for services, a couple people have asked if it actually needs to be like a wet handwritten signature or an electronic signature. And I know during COVID, this was, you know, we weren't, how would you say it, as stringent upon it, because in the past it was always like that wet signature, but now we have all these electronic databases. So if it's electronic, it needs to be maintained, right, in the maintained electronically, because that is considered an original signature. Or can you help me out with this one?
Electronic and digital signatures all have these very like different requirements based on how they're kept and how they're acquired and who can access them, etc. So I honestly do not know all those laws and how they interplay. If you have been approved or not approved, you don't need to be approved, but if you have been using digital signatures and you've have your PQI consultant has no concerns with how you're collecting your digital signatures or electronic signatures, then continue to use it that way. There's no law, there's no requirement for a wet signature at this point. So there is, I mean, you can do it. I know there's a lot of like applications over the computer, digital applications. A lot of people have moved away from paper files altogether. So totally fine that there's no wet signature. And I would just urge you to talk to your PQI consultant about if you're concerned about the electronic or digital signatures that you're collecting.
And there's a lot of rules around it. Basically, it needs to be the original signature. That's the rule. There's nowhere that says it needs to be wet or like a digital signature, as long as it meets all of the requirements in law, is considered an original signature. So just a change of time. Anything else on here that anyone would like to bring forward? Andrea?
There was a couple of questions that popped up about a legible signature. And if that's their signature, that's kind of what we have to go by. And if it's the one they use to sign the child in and out every day, those two documents are looked at together to make sure it's the same signature. But I know that we've had like a case where a person was not able to write a full signature because they didn't know how to write. And so they were helped do a self-certification that is their original, that is their signature. So again, when those types of questions come up and you're not sure if something would be, acceptable, always double check with your consultant. But they do look at the 9600 and the sign in and out sheets to compare those signatures. So that is something that is looked at.
Okay, Miss Janie.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into notice of action. All right. We're almost there, everyone. So I know it's like the Friday wiggles, but we're almost there. So this is the final section, which we're going to be going over in detail like we did kind of with application for services. We're going to go through the notice of action. So based on the program's monitoring instrument, the compliance indicator states the contractor complies with the program's due process requirements, including 1, providing parents with written information regarding their responsibility to comply with the program's rules. Number 2, issuing a notice of action where appropriate. And number 3, establishing procedures for parental appeal of any contractor's decision contained in the notice of action. So evidence of compliance includes the contractor's notice of action, parent appeal procedures, recently completed notices of action and appeals, along with written materials for parents. To ensure protocols are clear to staff, it is recommended that an agency document strategies used to meet each compliance indicator. So let's take a moment to review some strategies within our sample program planning and monitoring guide. So beginning with the current notice of action, meet CREED. So CREED is our state program reviewer. During an on-site visit, CREED will want to see copies of the notices of action issued that are located in the family data files. According to the regulations, the contractor's decision to approve, deny, or change services must be communicated to the applicant through a written statement, referred to as a notice of action. Note that the notice of action is often referred to by its acronym, NOAA or NOA. On September 22nd, the California Department of Social Services issued the Child Care Bulletin 21-11. The purpose of the communication was to notify contractors of the process for issuing the notice of action to families, along with the parent appeal process. As part of the Child Care Bulletin, contractors of CDSS Child Care and Development Programs were instructed to use required form notice of action CCD 7617. Note that it is okay to use your own notice of action format as long as all of the required information is included. At this time, the California Department of Education does not have plans to make any changes to the current guidance regarding notice of actions. CDE provides a few sample notices of action on their website, but you are not required to use a specific form. So again, if designing your own notice of action, just ensure that it includes all required items. Note that the CDE sample NOA CD 7617 is almost identical to the CDSS form CCD 7617. So for the purpose of this section, we will use this version. So looking at page 1 of the notice of action, it contains specific information used to inform parents of the contractor's decision to approve, deny, or change childcare services. For example, there are 5 main reasons or categories for issuing a notice of action. You have an approval, denial, change in services, family fees, or termination. Depending upon the reason the notice of action is being issued, within section 1, either 1A, application for services, or 1B, recipient of services would be completed. 1A, application for services, is used to inform the parent of an approval for initial certification, recertification, or denial of services. Based on the regulations, a notice of action must be issued within 30 days of a parent's signature on the application for services and should be provided in the parent's primary language. So let's take a look at an example for approvals. Toby submitted enrollment documentation and signed an application for preschool services on January 14th, 2021. After verification of eligibility, enrollment specialist Jerry issues a notice of action. For approvals, we indicate the date services are approved to begin. In our example, Toby's son Kevin's first day of preschool will be January 19th. Therefore, within section 1A, application for services of the notice of action, Jerry inputs the date January 19th, as that will be the first date Kevin will attend preschool. Within section 2, distribution of notice, the contractor must provide information on how and when the notice of action was provided to the parent, starting with the date the notice was hand delivered to the parent or mailed. If the notice is given to the parent, the given to parent box is checked, and the agency representative must have the parent initial the original notice of action on the date they receive it. When the notice of action is mailed, check the mailed to parent box and insert the date it is placed in the mail. If the notice of action is certified, express mailed, or registered, also insert the tracking number. So again, within our example, Jerry issued the notice of action by regular mail on January 15th. Since only 1 day had passed, the notice of action met the notification timeline, as it did not exceed the allowed 30 days from the date parent Toby signed the application for services. Next, in section 3 of the notice of action, the parent or caretaker information is recorded. Include the parent's contact information as it appears in the family data file. In section 4, approved childcare services, you'd enter the names of the child or children receiving services and the program code. In our example, Kevin is attending state preschool, which is a CSPP program. So for state preschool, within that box, you would just see CSPP. Next, the certified days and hours of care are entered. In our example, Kevin is certified to attend Monday through Friday for 8 hours each day. In the event that the parent has a variable schedule, the maximum weekly hours is entered. As a reminder, the notice of action must reflect the certified days and hours of care eligible for reimbursement, as indicated on the application for services. In addition, for full-day programs, ensure the certified hours correspond with the hours and days established by the supporting need documentation. So again, all of it should be in alignment. Also, in section 4, record the appropriate part-time and/or full-time flat monthly fee according to the most current fee schedule, as recorded on the application for services. As a reminder, as a part-time fee is assessed for certified need of less than 130 hours per month, and a full-time fee is assessed for certified need of 130 hours or more per month. If no fees are assessed, then you would just enter 0. In an effort to increase access and reduce financial burden due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as you are aware, family fees are waived for all child care and development programs through June 30th, 2023. However, contractors must continue to assess family fees, resume the collection of outstanding delinquent fees prior to March of 2020, and report the amount of family fees collected, along with the amount of family fees that were assessed but waived on the fiscal reports. So what might this look like in a program? The enrollment specialist will assess if a family will have a fee at the time of certification or recertification. The assessed fee is then recorded on both the notice of action and application for services. The enrollment specialist will inform the family that their fee is waived through June 30th, 2023. The contractor then reports the projected fees on the fiscal reports. So moving on to section 5, basis for family eligibility for services. Enter the family's eligibility criteria within this section. If they have more than one, then you would select all that apply. And same with section 6, basis for family need for services. An entry is only required for programs that have a need requirement, but you would enter the need criteria or criteria based on all parents counted in the family size. So if there is more than one need, then check all that would apply. Within section 7, reason for action, the specific reason for the action being taken must be included. Let's look at a sample action language that might be used on Toby's notice of action. The child listed above is eligible for childcare services through January 15th, 2022. Your monthly family fee is as stated above. A full-time fee applies February through May and September through November. A part-time fee applies January, June through August, and December. This action language would be added to section 7 of the notice of action, followed by sections 8 through 10, which include the agency name, along with the agency representative's name, title, and signature. So let's do a quick poll to check for understanding. Just a minute. All right, and you should see it launch on your page, and we will check for understanding here in a couple minutes. All right, it looks like the activity on the polling is slowing down. So I'm going to give folks about 10 more seconds to plug in their responses, and then we will review them as a group. Excuse me. All right, let me go ahead and end this and share results. Okay, question number 1. Jerry has services to fill an upcoming vacancy. Retta must mail or deliver a completed application for services to the parent within 30 days from the date the application is signed by the parent. So great job. The correct answer is true. So remember, we have that 30-day window where we have to send parents an approval or denial for their application for services. Number 2, once a family is approved for services, Jerry must issue a notice of action, recipient of services, when changes are made to the service agreement. So the correct answer is true. So once there is any changes to the application, we must communicate and make that communicate that change via a notice of action, letting parents know if we've approved or denied that change. And sorry about that, we put a choice 3, that was an error. And number 3, since family fees are waived this fiscal year, Jerry can leave the family fee section blank. And great job, this section is false. We still have to make sure that we assess family fees for our family. If they do not have a fee, they are not within that first income entry point for the family fee, then we can put 0 or leave it blank. There's no fee assessed to that family. So I don't see very many open questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed unless there's anything anybody wants to say or address before I move forward. All right, I'm going to continue going on. Okay, so in the event that services are denied to a family, the contractor must include an appeal is due by date on the notice of action. Whoops, sorry about that. If the notice of action is hand-delivered to a parent, the appeal due date is 14 days from the date the NOA is given. If the NOA is mailed to the parent, the appeal due date is 19 days from the date the notice of action is mailed. In addition, the notice must contain the specific reason for the denial, along with instructions for the parent on how to request an appeal hearing if they do not agree with the contractor's decision stated in the notice of action. Let's add a twist to our prior scenario with Toby. So Toby submitted enrollment documentation and signed an application for preschool services on January 14th, 2021. When enrollment specialist Jerry verifies Toby's income, he learns that some income documentation for the month is missing. Jerry reaches out to Toby over the telephone and in writing, requesting for him to submit missing income or provide verification of eligibility in at least one of the other eligibility criteria. Toby does not respond. Therefore, a notice of action is issued denying for Toby. The appeal is due by date is February 16th, which is 19 days from the date the notice of action was mailed. Jerry states the reason for action within the notice of action, and it reads, "Your request for childcare services has been denied. You are not eligible because you have not provided required documents to establish eligibility." Now that we've covered Section 1A, application for services, used to communicate if services are approved or denied, let's jump to Section 1B, recipient of services, which is used to inform the parent of a change or action that has been made to their services, such as a change in service, termination of service, or termination of service for delinquent fees. In the event that a change in services is needed between a certification period, a notice of action must be issued to communicate the action being taken. As a reminder, for full-day programs, once a family establishes eligibility and need, At the time of certification, their level of service will remain the same until it's time to recertify. For full-day programs beyond reporting income that exceeds the eligibility income threshold, there is no requirement to report other changes to eligibility or need. However, a family may at any time voluntarily request a change to their services. Common requests include changes in a family's service level, such as an increase or decrease in certified days and hours of care, or change in a family's income, which results in a decrease to their family fees. It is important to ensure staff follow agency and state policy to ensure common language and effective dates are used when processing changes for families across the board. In this sample, the agency policy states that if a parent submits a request to change their level of services after the fact, the effective date will be based on the receipt date of parent request and supporting documentation. And for future changes, an effective date is based on when the change will actually occur, according to the parent request and supporting documentation. The appeal date is 14 days from the date the NOA is given to the parent, or 19 days if mailed. The issue date is the date the NOA is either given or mailed. Note that a notice of action must be issued within 10 days to communicate the outcome of a parent's change request. So let's look at what this might look like in practice. So at initial certification, Susie is certified with 5.5 hours per day, Monday through Friday, based on her employment verification. After 2 months, she is promoted to a full-time position at the cafe she is working at. Susie voluntarily submits a written request for additional childcare hours, along with an employment verification to support the request. Enrollment specialist Jerry verifies and reassesses Susie's service level, which results in an increase in the certified days and hours of childcare. Jerry then issues a notice of action within 10 business days, approving an increase in hours to 8 hours per day. In the event that the scenario is reversed, and at initial certification, Susie is certified with 8 hours per day, Monday through Friday, based on her employment verification, and after, say, 2 months, there are cutbacks and her hours are reduced to, let's say, 5.5 hours per day. At that point, Susie would have 2 choices. She may either choose to keep her originally certified hours of 8 hours per day or submit a voluntary request to reduce her certified hours of care. In addition, Susie must acknowledge in writing that she acknowledges she may retain the current service level, and if she chooses to increase her certified hours at a later time, she will be required to submit additional documentation. So if Susie chooses choice 1, the agency doesn't have to do anything. You would do nothing. But if Susie chooses choice 2, then Susie must voluntarily submit a written request to reduce childcare hours. The request includes the acknowledgement that she understands she may retain her current service level, and additionally, an acknowledgement that she understands the new schedule would replace the current schedule. And if she chooses to increase her hours at a later time, then she will be required to submit additional documentation at that point. So in this case, Jerry will then verify and reassess the family service level, which would result in a decrease in the certified hours of childcare. Again, a notice of action would be issued within 10 business days, but in this case, approving the decrease in hours to 5.5 hours per day. Again, note that providers, or I guess I haven't noted this, but please note that providers must be sent a copy of the notice of action at the same time the family is sent the notice. So let's do a note that within this scenario, whenever we do a change in childcare services, when we issue the notice of action, Jerry would want to staple together the entire notice of action, change in service request, and supporting documentation and place it in the family data file. So then it chronologically tells the family's story. All right, I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. And oops, sorry about that. It disappeared on me. I apologize. It looks like I didn't share results for you all in the last poll. I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties with our polling. Here we go. Sorry. All right. Here we go. Sorry about that. I'll give folks a few minutes to go ahead and review these polling questions, and then we'll go ahead and finish up with the end of our NOA section. All right, we only have a couple questions on this poll, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. It looks like folks are trying to just sneak in their last few responses. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share results. Okay, so question number 1, Toby submitted a request to increase childcare services. Jerry must review and issue a notice of action within 10 business days. So let's not confuse the approval denial of services notice of action where we have to communicate that change to parents within 30 days for a change in service once they've already been approved. As contractors, once we receive that change, we have to issue notice to, we have to contact parents, give them a response within 10 calendar, sorry, I believe it says 10 business days, but it should be 10 calendar days. Number 2, Toby must issue provide of Toby's approved change in service at the same time the family notice is sent. So again, this was recently established through management bulletin. So we must notify providers at the same time a family notice is sent. So we just have our last section of notice of action. Panelists, is there anything you want to expand on or elaborate before I move on to the final sections? No?
I
All
just
sorry.
wanted to say one thing. If ever in doubt and you're like, do I need a notice of action for something? The answer is probably yes. It seems like a lot, but anytime you make any sort of change to a family certification, you have to provide a notice of action. So even though it seems like, oh, that's just a little change, they're just changing, 1 hour here, 1 hour there. It doesn't matter. You have to provide a notice of action. It has to be documented. It has to be given to the family and it has to go in the file. So just make sure it's better to over document than to under document. Anytime you think it's even a possibility, always issue a notice of action.
Yes. That's a great note for that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the last two sections of reasons for issuing a notice of action. So we're going to start off first. In the event that a family fee will change or services will be discontinued due to delinquent fees, a notice of action must be issued. So as a reminder, based on the regulations, we are required to assess family fees at initial certification, recertification, or if a family or a parent voluntarily reports changes to their income that results in a reduction to their family fees. In the event that a family services will be discontinued for any reason, a notice of action must also be issued. So a termination of services can either be parent initiated or agency initiated. A parent initiated termination may be due to child no longer needing services or moving out of the home, while an agency initiated termination may be due to non-compliance of a regulation or policy. Note that before sending a notice of action to a family for failing to provide eligibility information, such as in our scenario that we went through with Toby, you must be demonstrate that a written request where the information preceded the notice. So basically, remember, use NOAs to inform parents of an action being taken. Action to request missing items is to request items such as a letter that includes due dates and or a checklist informing the parents what is needed in order to recertify services. For example, for terminations or disenrollment, use specific language from the agency disenrollment policy that is typically written within your participant handbook. All notice of actions must contain instructions for the parent on how to request a hearing if the parent does not agree with the contractor's action. For CSPP programs, contractors must include the California Department of Education's Appeals Unit contact information within Step 5. And for CDSS programs, the contractor must include the California Department of Social Services CDSS Appeals Unit contact information on the notice of action. When a children enrolled in both a CDE and CDSS agency shall issue two to the family, one for the child or children enrolled in this. That includes the contact information for the CDE Appeals Unit and a separate notice of action for the children enrolled in the CDSS program. That includes the contact information for the CDSS Appeals Unit. If the parent disagrees, the parent may file a request for hearing within the contractor's, or they may request a hearing with the contractor within 4 days of the date the notice of action was received. Note that there are 2 levels of appeals. The first level is a local hearing conducted by a hearing officer who is not involved with the decision. This is typically a neutral person at your agency whose position is higher than the representative who issued the notice of action. Disagrees with the decision of the hearing officer, then at least a second level, or then a second level state the reviewer will want to see that the part of the notice of action that has information on where to submit an appeal is included with every notice of action in the family data file. He'll want to see your written parent appeal procedures, which are typically located within the parent handbook and as part of the notice of action. In addition, CREED will want to see documents used during the appeal process, such as a parent notification letter of hearing, hearing officer script, and decision letters used to communicate the outcome of an appeal. In conclusion, having a clear plan in place to complete the notice of action and appeals is key in meeting this compliance and will help staff feel confident during a program review. So I'm going to go ahead and launch for the family fee section here. So you'll see it launch. We'll give folks a few minutes to go ahead and respond. There are 4 So I'll give folks a few minutes to go ahead and review those. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll and review responses. Gonna go ahead and share the results. All right, question number 1. Jerry is getting ready to issue a notice of action to disenroll a family due to abandonment of service. What should Jerry include within the action language? And the correct response would be use language from your handbook along with the regulation number. Again, you'd want to make sure that whenever you're referencing a reason why you're disenrolling a family, that it aligns with your policies, your reasons that you've shared with parents that may be a result or a reason for issuing a termination of services from your program. You wouldn't want to just make up generic language on a whim, because then we're not being consistent across the board. Question number 2, Jerry is required to include instructions for the parents on how to request a hearing only when the agency suspects the parent will not agree with the contractor's decision. And the correct answer is false. Remember, we must include appeal rights for a parent for any notice of action that is issued to the parent, because they may not agree. Even if you think that, oh, it's positive action, they may not agree with what decision you've taken. So you want to include the appeal rights on all notices of action. Dwight has 2 children enrolled in both CDE and CDSS programs within the same agency. How many notices of action should he expect to receive for his failure to recertify? So he would expect 2, since the programs are from different funders. And oftentimes, an agency might operate multiple different programs, but different departments or different staff administer or provide services or provide the case management for that file. And number 4, Meredith informs the program that her daughter's last day will be on February 20th. What effective date and appeal date should be used on the notice of action? So based on this scenario, Meredith is telling us that her daughter's last day will be on February 20th. So the effective date of the action will be February 20th, and the appeal date is 14 days if delivered or 19 days if mailed. So I just want to, there was a 26% difference on there. So again, we had gone through, what your agency, like how you're ever establishing changes. If it happens in the future and they're telling you what date that's going to happen, then the effective date can be as of the date the parent tells you that action is taking place. But we're still required to provide appeal rights to parents and give them the time period, 14 days if hand delivered, 19 days if mailed. All right, so panelists, Christy and Adam, should I continue on with the conclusion, or do you guys want me to pause here for the Q&A?
Because of time, go ahead. I know we just have a few more slides to wrap it up, and then we will stay here. There are a few questions that I would like to address live. But I know we just have like a few sections, and that will give folks opportunities to hear the entire presentation. And then if they'd like to stick around for the final Q&A, they can do so. Does that sound okay?
Perfect. All righty. So like Christy said, there's only a few more slides, and this is the portion where we're just going to go ahead and wrap it all up, put it all together. So whenever we've gone through all the training, we've gone through all the pieces. So anyone who picks up your family data file to review it should clearly understand the family's eligibility story. Therefore, make no assumptions when you're completing or finalizing your family data file. Have an organized system to set up files consistently across staff, and it will help ensure there are no missing pieces, that eligibility information is accurate, and will save you in a state review. When using a file checklist to organize the family data file, ensure staff take their time. If a reviewer opens up the file and it is not being used or is being used incorrectly, it will be a red flag. Use it as a guide to set up your file. For example, at certification, begin to build the file based on the checklist and start from the top and work your way down, beginning with the approval notice of action. Under the notice of action, we'll lay the application for services, followed by proof of residency and documentation of family size. When adding the family size documentation, check the application for services to ensure everyone is accounted for. Next, proof of eligibility would be added. In this example, the family is income eligible, therefore there is an income calculation worksheet, followed by proof of income documentation. At this point, we double check the dates and totals on both the income calculation worksheet and application to ensure all was transcribed correctly. Don't forget, for working income eligible families, the authorization to release employment information is also needed, along with a copy of the parent notification used to inform families of their obligation to report income that exceeds the income ceiling threshold for their appropriate program. Continue working down the checklist, reviewing support documentation in collaboration with the application for services, and then placing it in the appropriate file location. In the event that there are unique situations or special requests, be sure to include good notes in the file too, along with any applicable staff attestations. So that does bring us to the conclusion of our training. I'm going to go ahead and welcome all of our panelists in the back. If there are any questions, or Chrissy had mentioned there's some things that we need to go ahead and expand on at this time.
Wow, you brought it in right on time, Jamie. Impressive.
12 o'clock.
Christy, why don't you let me close us, and then that way anyone who's waiting for questions to be answered can hang out. Does that sound okay? All right, awesome. Well, thank you first and foremost to our attendees for trusting us on this journey with all of you, and hopefully you feel more confident and have more of the answers that you need to efficiently enroll families into your programs. It was just a really wonderful collective here of panelists who I want to thank, Christy and Janie and all representatives from CDE, CDSS. Thank you, Andrea, for representing our person in the field. Larita, thank you for supporting our pilot counties. We're so grateful when you look at this. We have attendees from San Diego to Eureka, and then representatives from all those areas. So What a wonderfully diverse state we have and our diverse delivery model. And so that's why there's lots of questions, because California leads the way, right? We're going to do it. We do it differently. We have a big state and a lot of people to support. So I commend all of you for supporting the children and families you do in your community. So thank you for being here. You are going to get, as soon as you close this webinar, you're going to get a survey. 2 minutes, if you could fill out that survey. We review the responses and learn how we can make this training more efficient and better for you. When you fill out that survey, you get a certificate of completion. You can upload that certificate to the EC Workforce Registry if you want and get your professional development growth hours. In addition, I will be sending all of you an email with some of these other follow-up items. I would expect that email shortly, and also recordings are posted for day 1, day 2. We'll have this recording posted by the end of the day. You have access until the end of October. So if you want to go back in case you missed anything, want to see what we said again. And finally, we're just here to support you. So if anything comes up afterwards, reach out to us and say, hey, I was thinking about this response you gave me and I have a follow-up question. Absolutely, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. So with that, let's go into our bonus time.
Is that what we're calling it now?
I want to give it like an official slide and music.
I know, we haven't, this is the first time we've had this situation for all 3 days, but I just have a few things I want to share. There are a lot of questions in particular to family fees, 12 and 24 months. We assign it to the child who has the longest hours. What if they're a lot of what ifs, like what if they are using the same hours, who do we assign it to? And then at 12-month eligibility, if they have an increase, like what do we do? We really haven't had to, this is new, right? Thank goodness this year family fees are waived. So I really don't want to really even respond, provide guidance like to use, I know these questions and answers, I'm sure probably some of the others on the panel have also particularly with family fees. And I'd like to recommend we put that on our chart that that Andrea was discussing earlier. Is that okay?
It's on there, done.
Oh, okay.
No, that's great. Great point. Thank you.
Yeah, there were a lot of good questions that that we pinged to follow up on, because there were things we hadn't even looked at, or at least we haven't had to deal with yet. And so now that they're starting to come up and in preparation for July 1, we're really going to have to take a closer look at those. So if anything does come up, after you leave the webinar and you think of it, please feel free to email Adam, sorry, and we'll add those questions, because honestly, that's what we're here this to make sure that you all have the most current and up-to-date information that we can help get those answers for.
And those scenarios are so important to work through, because it's not the regular stuff we have questions on, it's all of like the what ifs, and we have a lot of what ifs in our world. Can I bring up one more thing? And it's not regarding family fees, but I had questions regarding terminations, right? First off, but a good rule of thumb is if a termination is parent initiated, then base the effective date on the parent request. If a termination is agency initiated, such as abandoned care, all those different things, then the effective date is going to be the same date as the appeal date. No matter what, on both notice of actions, the appeal date is always 14 days if given, you have those initials on there, and always 19 days if mailed. Is that kind of what you do, Andrea, at your agency too?
Usually, even if it is parent initiated, we give them that appeal period, because we've had families change their minds or go and then realize, okay, no, that wasn't the best thing, and come back and ask, to be back in our program. So for all, even parent initiated ones, we do give them the entire appeal period.
Yeah, for the effective date, you
Yes.
just across the board, you have the effective date and yeah.
Yes.
So
And
our
especially-
point is, it might not, no matter, the appeal date's like solid, like that you have to allow that time period. The effective date, whatever your agency decides, whether it's based on the parent initiated date or across the board, make sure it's consistent so all of your families are, in a sense, treated equally.
Yeah, and so like for the scenario with the future date, we'll use that as the effective date because we knew even in ample time of the appeal date. So, you know, we'll count backwards to make sure that you know, and give that family that appeal time anyways.
From the rest of the group, are there any other questions they would like to address?
No, but I just wanted to validate again, a lot of people asked about the family with a child in both houses and like what, you know, family fee to pay on July 1st. Again, that's one of the ones that we, you know, are elevating and adding to our list. So know you are on this email chain and have we have your information. So as soon as, you know, we can get some solid answers or at least guidance, we will go ahead and make sure we share that information with everybody. You know, but know that we are advocating for the answers.
Okay, so I think at this point we can kind of do what we did yesterday is let's go ahead and go through the questions. Do we want to go through it individually and then if we're unable to answer them, talk through it as a group?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and today we only have 10 open questions.
Oh yeah. Not too bad.
And a couple were thank yous. So
Yeah.
again, thank you for the great information.
Oh yeah.
So the survey will populate once you leave the webinar. So that will come up, I believe. I know that came up as a question.
That is correct. And in case, I'll post a link just in case that helps it make it a little easier, but yes, it will automatically forward you to the survey.
Janie, can I put you on the spot and we have like a little conversation? Because I know you spent some time with this more than I have. So Monica asked, and there's actually a couple questions regarding the provider notification. Don't we have to send the provider notification the day the change was reported, whereas the NOA can be sent out 10 days after?
So I don't want to answer it blindly without looking at the management bulletin, but if I recall, and any panelists, if I'm stating this incorrectly, I believe it stated that we had to notify the provider the same date we notified the parent of the change determination.
And are any of our from CDSS here that could confirm that? That would be awesome.
Esme, are you able to confirm that?
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
think that took care of a few of our questions here. Okay,
Let me know if I need to bring up the presentation. I took it down just so I can look at the questions and.
That's okay. We see your sweet little Jack on the screen.
Oh, do you? I'm sorry.
No, we like him.
That's my little puppy.
Friday.
Christy, there's a question about where can I find an updated part day and full day handbook or cheat sheet? Have you updated those on the Monarch link yet?
Yes. I'm sorry, Jane. Oh, wait, actually, can I think you were the last host. You want to just show folks. So if you're a member of Monarch Link, Janie is going to show you where those are located. We recently launched a new platform on, what is it, Tuesday, the September 6th. So Janie's going to pull up that screen and just visually show you than me trying to explain it to you.
Give me just 1 second. One moment, please. Please hold. Oops.
Okay, Andrea, I'm not sure who asked this initially. To piggyback off Doug's question, I've emailed a lot of notice of actions. General childcare. Do I need to be getting wet signature for general childcare? So your notice of actions,
There is no wet
there is no
signature.
parent signature. So the signature needs to be initiated by the agency representative, right?
So there's kind of two ways to do it. Deliver initial, but this is again our in-house policy. We hand an out sheet and there's a little box where we would put NOA and they'll initial for it. But I don't believe there is a signature required for NOAs. Do I need to get an electronic signature?
Not a parent signature requirement. There's
No.
just the authorized representative. So the agency authorized representative who is responsible for issuing that.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Janie. Sorry. You can.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I had the right screen up for folks.
Can you just show them
link?
right up there in the resources? So on the top of the new platform under resources right there. If you go down to parent handbooks, they're right there in all of the other forms. A lot of the cheat sheets are in the eligibility section. And there's also the tab for, do you want to just click on all forms, tools, handbooks? And that's where you can download everything. So if you scroll down and click on, say you click on parent handbooks, it's going to bring you to a page where you can download.
I have to log in.
Oh, you gotta log in.
Yeah.
It's going to bring you to the page where you can download the specific handbook for the program you're referring to.
This looks fabulous. I haven't been here on the
oh, you haven't been
launch.
The new platform is pretty awesome.
It is.
Sorry, I'm not to brag, but we're pretty proud. We put a lot of work into really making sense of our world, and all of the programs are you know, broken down and so forth.
It looks really good. You knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, here's the program pathways broken down by program. And then we even have these really cool enrolling families guides in there too, that's specific to like all we're talking about. So if someone wants like a user manual. But okay, sorry, I'm getting off of the questions.
But just a resource if you guys, very helpful to go around and.
Okay. Adeluz. After we completed all DLL forms with parents and they respond that their child is DLL, but when they completed the 9600, they stated they were not English learners. Do we go back and make the changes on the application for services and in CDMIS? My first feeling is yes, because if you don't go into your database and make this change, when there's going to be another reporting system that's going to be launched where we're going to need to report all of these dual language learners based on these results. So to me, just to keep it clean, we're at the beginning of the program year, I would make sure that our databases and everything is very clean for these families from the get-go. What do you think, Andrea?
And best practice would be to go ahead and make those changes in a different color ink, initial and date them, and put a note in your case notes that you did that. So again, update it with another color ink, initial and date, and then case note it so that it is recorded why it was changed and what initiated the change.
And when you make it on the paper copy, make sure it's in your database.
Yes, so follow it all the way through.
Garbage out.
Well, not only that though, but it affects your adjustment factors and your money. So when you're
Yeah.
reporting in CPARIS or your whatever the Spark, the system that's going to be coming, it's going to need to match and it's going to
All
need to
linked.
flow all the way through. So your 9,400, the 9,600, all of your reimbursements. So make sure that you have it documented that you made those changes and that it goes all the way through.
Okay, thank you. Soul is asking, this is not for this fiscal year, since we are on hold harmless, but in future years. We were asked to remove policy regarding unexcused absences since we can only terminate based on abandonment of care. That has nothing to do with the hold harmless. That has to do with what year were the new attendance regulations rolled out? Was that last
I think it was
July
last
or
year.
even a couple years ago, huh?
It's been a couple of years now.
So that is true. That was removed for our center-based contracts, right? Or really all our contracts. So we do not know what our resource for those families who's used up all their best interest days and keep on accumulating unexcused absences. So right now, basically you are, this is something that is at the forefront with our discussions, right, with both departments. And yes, right now it's not impacting programs, but folks are very aware that with the 30 days abandonment of care and all these unexcused absences, how in the future, how that might impact programs. So I'm sorry, we don't have an answer for you today, but this is a hot topic in the back end right now.
And it is on our chart. It is something that we've been following up with and, you know, trying to gain clarity on because of all the different nuances to it and aspects. It is a little more complicated. One of the things that I would suggest for best practice would be to have a system in place on attendance improvement. So you have your policy, what you do. If you notice, have a policy and procedure flagged for children who are accumulating a lot of unexcused absences, and a process and procedure on how you're addressing it on your end. So we may not be able to address it yet on the other end, but for this, have, you know, a plan in place. Ours, I know, includes like our family service coordinator and our education, you know, team who will meet with the family and how can we help you improve your attendance and what are the hurdles that are preventing you from bringing the children, so that we have a documented plan and way that we're trying to help triage the family to improve their attendance.
Yes.
You hit it on the nose. Okay.
You cleared them out. Hey, that was great. Good, nice little bonus session. Thank you everyone who stuck around for those extra questions. Like I said, you'll have some follow-up from us shortly regarding a couple particular items. But other than that, thank you again for your time and your commitment to us this week. We really greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Christy. Thank you, Janie. Thank you, everyone from DSS, CDE, Andrea.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. Yes.
We're gonna all go take a nap, and then we'll,
all well deserved.
Yeah.
You won't find that in regulations.
Yep.
Nap time.
Take
Take care, everyone.
you.
Be well.